Good afternoon, everyone. Today is another episode of Equal Start, Unheralded Heroes, and I welcome on Akwasi Hagan, social worker extraordinaire. Was it British Association of Journalism as well for social services, is
Surely,
it?
mate.
Yeah,
Sure, no
politician
gas,
as well
man.
now.
Yeah, man. I'm trying, man. Sean, thanks, man. This is well overdue, But afternoon, everyone. Afternoon.
Mhm. And so, for the benefit of the audience, could you tell us a bit about yourself for the people that don't know you, even though to me, you're very famous?
Yeah. So I'm Akwasi Hagan. I am a qualified social worker. I've been a social worker. It'll be 12 years come July. And I'm a children and family social worker. I've managed different teams. I've managed referral and assessment, child protection, looked after children leaving care. I'm now moving on to my fifth local authority very soon. I'm the co-host of the Social Worker and a Mentor podcast I do with Robert Dyer. You would have seen Sean's already been on the podcast. He's been on the panel. I'm also one of the Social Work Union national executives, so I'm doing a lot of work in like the political arena in terms of um, just the general kind of state of social work and trying to support social workers in terms of the system, reducing caseloads and lack of resources. I'm also an associate lecturer at like various universities. And I'm also I mentor newly qualified social workers and students, and also a practice educator for social work students as well. So that's just a bit about me.
Mhm. And funny enough, going forward, you said you had isn't it some kind of political position what you was applying for, or like the leader of the social services? One of the panels, I
Yeah,
think, for
yeah,
the is it the all parliamentary party
yeah.
group?
So I'm part of the
Mm,
all
mm,
parliamentary
mm,
cross-party working
mm,
group.
mm,
So I attended there last year in October with the Social Workers Union and BASWA. So we're trying to do a lot more work closely with MPs in the government in terms of like social work, in terms of the working conditions. So yeah, I'm trying to just, I guess, get into a kind of higher position really because I want to be a bit more influential and try and make change where I can. So yeah, man, I'm trying, Sean. I'm trying.
mm. Yeah. And when you was going forward with the was it the group that you invited me to in
Hmm.
September, the Disruptors
Yeah,
Network,
yeah,
and going forward on is it Dr. Alice Lovin? What was your
yeah.
purpose for that?
So the purpose, Sean, of joining that group is that what we wanted to do, Sean, is that we want to kind of create a group that brings professionals and parents together, particularly those who've had a lot of involvement with the system. I mean, I think we're all very much aware that not every parent or every child or young person has a positive experience with, social workers and social services. But we wanted to be able to bridge the gap whereby we had people with lived experiences to be part of the group. And it was such a good event, Sean, that we had, because actually it was professionals and parents coming together where we weren't actually at loggerheads. We actually came from from the same kind of, I guess, same kind of vision. So we're hoping Sean to continue that because we do want Sean's system to change. Do you know what I mean? We want to be able to, I guess, for me as a social worker, not let people continue to be fearful of my job role and kind of see social workers as a profession, but actually we're just trying to support and work with families. That we're not just Sean coming in just to remove children. But that event was really good, and it was good that you came. Very good event.
Mm. Yeah, that's. I'm glad you invited me because it was
Mm,
interesting to see the plans going forward. Because as you know, with parents, they're like, well, we can't trust social services, especially child services in particular. Uh,
mm,
as you know, they say, oh, they will take away our children. They will tell us that we're not very good at parenting, forced
mm,
adoption, scaring them with removal. So they're
mm.
saying, Sean, you're speaking to these people, but what's really changing? So the early intervention, I'm glad that's something positive coming out of the new changes that are being made. But is that only to save money, or is that to really make changes so parents feel safe and they work in partnership with social services if they're struggling and need support in child rearing.
I think, Sean, for me, the reforms that are happening is to get in there, Sean, a lot more earlier. So the currently the Pathfinder, which the Department for Education is leading on, where every single local authority eventually is going to have that system in place, is there, Sean, because we want to kind of reduce the amount of young and children coming into the care system. So if we can get there early, get the families to be on board, then we don't need cases, Sean, progressing up the threshold. Do you know what I mean? We want to be able to pump and do that work early. I think, Sean, what you said about the stigma is something that's quite important because I know being as a social worker, there's a lot of stigma, Sean, in terms of what we do. Many people do feel as though we just come in and we just take children away. And part of the reason why, Sean, I've done the podcast and why I'm as vocal as I am is because I try and, Sean, explain to families and children about the processes that we have to follow. That a social worker, Sean, can't just one day, like say how me and you are talking today, I
Yes,
can't just leave my house and then go and take a child and remove them without there being a process. But also, Sean, for me as well, one of the things as a social worker is that I'm not ignorant and naive to the fact that not everybody, Sean, has a positive experience of social services. And for me, Sean, one of the things that I don't do is that I don't invalidate anybody's experience if it's negative. I think it's important that we hear from, individuals, parents, carers, whereby it's negative, because in order for things to change, you need to hear about what's gone on so you can look at how you can remedy it. But also, Sean, at the same time, where I also have to push back is also, Sean, as well. There are many examples where, but actually, social services, it is warranted for us to intervene. And the things that I think, Sean, people don't see is that nobody, Sean, sees, and you've met Curtis Powell, the social work race.
yes, I did.
Nobody, Sean, really sees the hard work that social workers try and implement behind the scenes. I think once a child, Sean, is removed and in care, I think people seem to think that we've just removed the child, but I think, Sean, everyone's case is different. And so I always go and say that we don't know, Sean, what assessments took place, what plans took place, what discussions we've had, Sean, with the parents as well, and what, Sean, we've tried to do before, Sean, it gets to the legal arena. Because, Sean, like I said before, innit, that the legal process, Sean, is very much the last resort. There's You got to start at the lowest end of the threshold and then make your way up. Do you see what I mean? But everyone's
Yes.
case, Sean, is different. So it's not to say that I don't never understand what people say when they say they have negative experiences. But also as well is that people understanding, Sean, the processes that what social workers are trying to do. And Sean, to be honest with you, as a social worker, going to court, if I say to you, I like going to court, like, I'll be lying to you. Most social workers, Sean, we don't want to be going to that court arena. We would rather, Sean, try and deal with it at the earliest point. Do you know what I mean? So hence why, Sean, I go, even people, you're gonna laugh here. How I met this man, because Sean knows my family. Me and Sean didn't get on. I didn't like
Yeah.
me and Sean people, we didn't get on. But
Yeah, he
then
always relays the story.
yeah, now people are saying so. We didn't get on. I was myself, why is this guy always coming at me for all the time with back and forth in the comments? And then I spoke to you, Sean, after, and I was like, you know what? He's actually not against social workers. It's not even that. Do you know what I mean? You're against the system, but you're not actually against social workers. So, I like I said, people, me and Sean be talking for years. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So, but I try, Sean, where I can to try and educate people on what we do, what our processes are, and the fact that, Sean, we don't want to be involved longer than we need to. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's a
You
fair.
know,
No, that's a
so
fair. That's a
yeah,
fair comment. Remember,
yeah.
in my situation, I actually initiated child services.
Mm.
So it's just that, as you said, the systemic issues. And I thought,
Yeah.
how can you have these kind of regulations and then there's different outcomes? I always use the analogy of the football referee. One referee says
Mm.
it's a penalty, another one says it isn't. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that it's
yeah.
also that disparity and injustice why people, especially people that have been on the wrong end of decisions, will go out there and they use, the minority. that being
Mm,
slighted usually have the biggest voice, especially online and in campaign work.
yeah,
And then it makes it bigger than what it is. Because obviously,
yeah,
without local authorities having child services, social services, then there's be a lot of children that are at risk. And I've seen that now, especially from the campaign work,
mm,
and activism work, and community interest stuff. That I've seen parents said, "Well, I can understand why this happened, but why has it
yeah,
happened here? But then with this parent, same circumstances, this is those in removals or interventions not been triggered, especially when the
yeah,
thresholds are quite clear from what I when I read regulation and policy. So
mm,
moving forward, as you know, I would like to see that change with maybe a new regulator chaired by the people for the people, where
mm,
they can be trained. Obviously, you can't have ignorant citizens of the not knowing the process and
mm,
the thresholds and what in terms of policy and everything.
yeah,
Because you know, if you have people that are emotional, that come in there without the information and knowledge, then you probably have even worse disparities. And I think, see, this
this
is
is
why
it.
we
Yeah,
won't allow parents to come in and have any say over what we do in terms of the pathway and intervention, because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're talking from an emotional spot, not from a place of safeguarding
Mm,
and logic and evidence, which that's
yeah.
what I think most fair people that are not traumatized will expect and want. Now, but what I did find always, as you know, always amazing is that as a man that you're in child services, because that's the next reason why I was shocked when I first saw you online, especially with your social media.
Yeah.
Said, is he a plant? Said, how can a man like that be speaking
Mm.
openly and not risk being like
But
reprimanded for
this is
conflict of interest? So I was shocked. I was shocked, and then
but this
obviously
is
you opened up my eyes to a whole new world.
yeah, but this is the thing, Sean, for me. Yeah. I think, Sean, when Sean I became a social worker, one of the things, Sean, that I observed straight away was that social work, there's not many men in social work anyway, let alone any black men. And so I'm a small, if you've got a percentage of 100%, black men we're not even 10%, we're lower than that. Most black men, Sean, will go into youth offending, they'll go into gangs work, they'll
I've
go into
noticed this. Yeah, I've noticed.
mentoring, they'll go to trauma-informed specialists, which is brilliant. So I didn't really see a lot of black men within social work, and particularly Sean within the senior leadership position. So it was very important, Sean, for me to be able to represent and using Sean the podcast and speaking openly, Sean, it's been important. And the reason why, Sean, I've used the podcast is because, Sean, for a long time, social work has never been able to have any sort of kind of autonomy to speak on what the key issues are. And you're right, even in my first local authority where I was, because that's where I met Rob, who's the mentor. When we started Sean doing the podcast, they didn't Sean want us to do the podcast. They didn't because they thought that we'd be talking about the local authority itself.
Mm.
And so, Sean, myself and Rob, that's not our angle. One thing about myself and Rob is that we never say where we work. We always stay within the lines of GDPR, data protection. And that we've maintained that. But they didn't want us to speak about social work because they thought it'd be compromised. They thought we was gonna go on and talk about how bad a local authority is. They missed the point. It wasn't about that. What Sean was about is about the realities of social workers and professionals in education and social care and what we go through. And because of that, Sean, being, it's our content, we manage it. The reason why, Sean, it's done so good is because I'm saying, Sean, exactly what most social workers are thinking, but they haven't, Sean, got the confidence to say it. Where, Sean, for me, I'm 12 years qualified in July. I've got the knowledge and experience, and I know um, how to manage it, and also the topics that are actually important. So, loads of people within different local authorities, Sean, they watch the podcast. I've had senior leaders on. I've had a lot of people,
Yeah, I've
Sean,
seen that. Of course, Isabel
on.
Travelers.
Yeah, I've had
Shocked
Isabel
by
Traore
that.
on. I've had directors. I've had loads of people on, Sean, because it's a safe space, Sean, also for them to speak. Because, Sean, social workers don't have a voice. But if you see Sean now, at the moment right now, this podcast and Sean others, we're online, we're talking, we're pushing back, we're saying, no, this is not what's happening. Oh, caseloads are too high. Identification. Do you know what I mean? So it's important for social workers to speak. We need to Sean be able to have a voice because the media, Sean, for so long has controlled that. So we've never ever had that control. So the podcast, Sean, for me, is being a voice to speak. And yes, being a black man as well. I think, as you said, people have been very, very shocked and said, "Oh, it's a black man who's a social worker, who's a man, and he speaks so openly." But also, Sean, representing. So even Sean meeting like the young people and the parents. Sometimes, Sean, when I've had a lot of the what's it, many of the children, young people, and families, they've been shocked to see, oh, a young black man on their doorstep. Because when you think of social worker, Sean, you don't. I keep saying it. You don't really think of me. The kind of look of a social worker is not someone who's a black man. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Even
that's the
I went
culture.
to
That's the culture of
university.
the nation. Mm.
It's a culture. Yeah, you would even when I was at university, there's only three men on the course. But if I thought, right, the image of a social worker, is it me? I never, Sean, would depict myself. Do you know what I mean? But it's only now, Sean, that the profession, they're seeing someone like me who's there, and they're like, actually, you know what? More black men, you can come into the profession. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's very important, Sean, for me to be able to represent the possession, but profession, sorry. Use the podcast and at the level I'm at, open, Sean, doors for me, and get into the political arena and speak on key issues, Sean, that I think need to change, not just for the profession, but the people that we're working with.
Going back to that, what made you choose social services over other careers? 'Cause that's
So
interesting. I was keen to know like the mindset because that's not something that an everyday person says. As
yeah,
from our community that we're going to go into
yeah,
being
yeah,
a
yeah.
caseworker for local authorities.
Yeah, the thing is, Sean, for me, what made me so initially, Sean, I mean, I was doing football, I was doing football in school and in college as well. But I wanted to work, Sean, with young people, and my mum works in the social care field, and she said to me that you've got a lot of skills to be a social worker. And so my first role, Sean, is that I worked as a family group conference advocate for my first local authority. So I was doing family groups conference coordinating. And then a lot of people behind me were saying to me, you know what, actually, social work is a good avenue for you to go in. And so I thought, okay, you know what? Yeah, I think I'll be a good social worker. Do you know what I mean? So that was Sean my avenue, and my passion. I wanted to work with young people, and I thought, what would help me to go into that? And it was social work. Do you know what I mean? And so when Sean I qualified, Sean, to be honest with you, it's so interesting because I didn't actually want to do child protection. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't, yeah. So because Sean of things like serious case review and all those sorts of things, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do child protection. And then I ended up staying in child protection, Sean. I did it on the front line for 8 years, but overall, out of the 12 years, like I'm saying as a social care manager, I've done child protection for 10 years. Do you know what I mean? For a very long time as a social worker and as a manager. Yeah, and I really, Sean, enjoyed it. It really gave me the reality of what actually happens within our system and our service. But also, Sean, as well, I got to work with young people anyway. I got to show and work with young people, so many young people, and a lot of the parents that I worked with said to me that it's good to have a black male as a social worker, and good to have a young black male as a social worker as well. So it's been really, really, really good, Sean. But what I've tried to do is that I've tried to, Sean, branch out by not just staying within the local authority lane, which is why, Sean, I do a lot of things outside the local authority, go into community events because even Sean as a community, you know, um, I know the community and social services, we haven't got the best relationships, but I think me, Sean, saying to the community that I'm a black male, I'm in the system, so I can give Sean two perspectives. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so it's been Sean really, 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 really good. And like I said, I've been able to go to a lot of community events and have Sean a lot of good discussions and also debunk some of the myths that are out there, but also, Sean, say to the community that listen, I'm aware of the inequalities within the system because I've also, Sean, felt it as a black male social worker climbing up. But it's also important for me, Sean, to represent too. So that's what Sean's kept me going and kept me passionate in the profession.
Yes, 12 years. That is veteran. You might as well be a pensioner already after
Yeah, yeah,
12
man, yeah.
years. I can imagine 12 years in the same profession in industry.
Mm,
So what's the next stop then? Directorship, head of
yeah, I
social
mean,
services yourself? Well, I think you should
yeah,
be. I think you should be.
that's my passion, Sean. I'm hoping, Sean, that in the future I want to be, Sean, a director of children's services because one of the things, Sean, that I will say is that the racial, Sean, inequality does exist within the profession. In terms of like career progression. I think, remember, Sean, I did a community care overview and talk about
Yeah.
the glass ceiling.
Yes, I
That,
remember.
Sean, is very much is there. Do you know what I mean? There are not a lot of black male, Sean, senior leaders. So for me, Sean, I do want to progress up. I want to progress up because I want to progress up because that's my ambition. But also, Sean, I want to be able to represent because being a black male, Sean, in this system, being a social worker, I mean, it's my USP, it's my unique selling point. But also, Sean, as well, and I'm going to say this quite openly, there are certain arenas, Sean, that I go into that I'm the only color in the room. So I might, Sean, at times be the only black face in certain arenas, even as a social worker, even as seasoned as I am. And so it's a negative, Sean, because there's no diversity there, but it's also shown a positive because I get to represent and I get to say that actually, listen, this is the actual issue. As a black male social worker in this room, there's a lack of diversity. And my profession is there's meant to be a diverse group of people who work for the profession. If you look at, Sean, the social work structure in terms of black people, there's loads of black women, Sean, who were social workers.
Yeah, of course. I saw
Loads.
that the Disruptors Network.
Yeah,
I never
exactly.
seen
Yeah.
so many black social workers in the same room.
Yeah, and they're women. Do you know what I mean? And I will say to you, Sean, black women have really helped me in terms of my progression. They have been the one to mentor me and push me up. But as you, Sean, climb up, that starts to dwindle. So there are a few black women who are in senior leadership positions. So I know one black director at the moment, right? I know one black director. No, two. I know two. One black male, one black man, one black woman who's a director. But even in terms of like senior management, we're getting there, Sean, but it's still, Sean, not enough. Do you know what I mean? And so the profile, Sean, that I've got, I'm also trying to, Sean, get in there because I'm, Sean, maybe like I'll experience, but I'm one of the young managers, Sean, if that makes sense. Most of these managers, Sean, they're like in their 40s, 50s. They've got years on me. So I'm still, Sean, one of the like the youngest managers coming
Yeah,
up, if
but you
that makes
started
sense.
younger though. You started younger.
No, that's what I'm saying.
What I
That's what I'm
noticed,
saying. Yeah,
our
I started in my
community pivot.
20s.
We pivot. We do go and do other things, or we progress,
That's
like
what
you
I'm
said, from
saying.
youth offending,
Yeah.
community justice into that kind of role, thinking that they can make a difference. But in terms of the population overall, I think if you don't group us with Asian and ethnic whites from Europe, we don't even make up 3% of the population. So
No,
anything approaching
yeah.
that is representative of us as a nation. And that's why
That's
some people
right.
are suspicious of it in these spaces. Said if we start having too much people from minority backgrounds when the nation's majority white, then what are we really doing? Is it positive discrimination? Are they competent to rise to these roles? Are they being railroaded through because of positive discrimination? Because the 2010 Equalities Act. So
Mhm, mhm.
a lot of what I've noticed, a lot of those people from traditional spaces or have right wing ideology, they're thinking we have to check them and may do a thorough, due diligence on their background
Yeah.
and their capabilities before they rise. And then some people by that time they said, that's too long. It's hindering my career. So I'm gonna
Mm.
move out of the industry or I'm gonna just stop at being a caseworker.
But also, Sean, as well, what is Sean also about is about Sean diversifying the leadership. That is something that is important, in terms of certain decisions, Sean, that are made, the racial inequalities that are out there. You need to have people from black and global majorities who are there. And I'm not
100%.
saying,
Hmm.
yeah, and I'm not saying, oh, just pick anybody, but I'm just saying that where you can see that actually there are social workers, and to be honest, Sean, that there are loads who try and progress and they're told no. I was, Sean, told sometimes, no, you're not ready. But I would see, Sean, my white counterparts pivot, go up, and you've heard me say this openly,
Of course, yeah.
pivot, go up. and then I'm still Sean where I'm at. Do you know what I mean? So it's very, very important, Sean, that we diversify it because a lot of the experiences, Sean, what we were kind of saying in terms of particularly the community, in terms of the inequality and racism, it does filter Sean down to those that we work with. I mean, I spoke about Janine Davis, spoke about race, racism, and safeguarding children, how there's an overrepresentation of young black children within the care system.
Mm.
If you look at young black children, Sean, in terms of fostering and adoption,
That's
you
true.
notice that there's not a lot there's not a lot of what do you call it? There's still a bit of reluctance of black and global majority foster carers to come forward because of the system. Do you know what I
We're
mean?
stigmatized
So
in the culture, the way we're viewed.
yeah,
That's
so
why.
it's like we're needed, but then at the same time as well, I also take on board the fact that the system in itself it puts people off. When I speak to a lot of black men about coming to social work, they're like, no, they're not on it. Some have gone and said, and I don't mean here. Some who are not social workers have said, no, they're not on it. They're not coming in because paperwork's long. It's too much. They don't want to go and deal with the bureaucracy. One guy in America who followed the podcast went and said he don't want to be a plant. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Exactly.
So
See,
there,
that's why I used to think.
yeah,
Yeah, that's why I used to think.
yeah. He said he doesn't want to be a plant. That's in America though. He doesn't want to go and be a plant, and doesn't want to be used. That's what he was saying. So um, there's a lot, Sean. But at the same time, Sean, if we are not there, then there's a gap. So it's being there, representing, being your authentic self. Do you know what I mean? Coming with your education and your knowledge and representing. And it's important, Sean. I mean, when I'm Sean in those rooms, and I speak, Sean, I don't, if I'm honest with you, Sean, I don't feel out of place. I don't. Do you mean I don't feel like right, I'm
You
not meant
wouldn't
to
be
be.
because you're knowledgeable. And
Yeah, but
remember,
I don't.
what I've noticed with your industry now is that they see this as a good public relations campaign. This
Mm,
podcast thing now, even the NHS the other day, I was part of a working group, and they've got a system for trying to penetrate the black community about kidney disease and
mm,
kidney donation. And they're asking us now, well, was part of the working group, the steering group. Oh, what do you think? How would we be able to market this and get people involved to give their ideas and tell us the
mm.
structure and what they would like to see within the podcast? I said, what, in an NHS? So this thing is growing. It's like a revolution. I notice all the public services now are trying to
It's
have that kind of
growing.
podcast element. Even the Office of National Statistics, the other day, I went to look for some information on the breakdown of social services, the complaints since 2020, the last 5 years.
Mm.
And the Office of National Statistics now have a podcast.
That's
So
what I'm saying.
it's yeah, so it's a new thing. You as a pioneer, people are now following your lead with that. I said, listen, this is a good way to manage people's expectations and show a human face to the back alley
This is exactly
bureaucratic paperwork and
it.
systems and interventions and
This
policies.
is it, Sean. This is it. Yeah, because you need to, Sean, be relatable, and also, Sean, with the podcast as well. The reason why it is good because I'm relatable to the audience because with the audience are yes, Sean, they're social workers, they're managers, but the thing is, Sean, with me, I'm not. I don't toe the line if that makes sense. Like in the sense that I'm very very real with what I say. I'm very authentic. Do you know what I mean? And I just talk the truth. When I've spoken Sean about caseloads. Caseloads, Sean, for social workers has always been an issue because I was at social worker, Sean, where I had 40 children on my caseload. It was
That's too
Sean a
much.
lot.
Don't
It's
they have
too
a
much.
policy guideline though for how much individual
Well, but the
cases you
thing
can have as one worker?
the the thing is, Sean, we all local authorities say, all right, you should have no more than this and this and this. But Sean, with vacancies and people leaving,
Mm.
it's a lot. So I talk about Sean these things. I talk about the working hours of social workers. I've even Sean spoken about things to do with serious case review. When serious case review, Sean, happens, how we always go and we get blamed. All those sorts of things. So I'm talking, Sean, because as you said, we want to show the human side of what goes on. Do you know what I mean? That actually, look, we are also people as well. We're trying to make a difference. And the podcast, Sean, we have different guests on. You've been on the podcast. I had yourself. I had Chloe. I had Sally. Do you know what I mean? Whereby even if you disagree, Sean, with the podcast, like for me, Sean, we actually have no problem with anybody who has wants to have healthy discourse because Sean, it's healthy. You need people who disagree with you. But the podcast that we did, me and you did, and the one that we did with Sally and Chloe, Sean, it was brilliant. Even though Sally went and said, you know what, actually, this is what's going on with social workers, this is this, it was something that people listen to as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
Because
because she uses the like kind of the critical friend approach and
this is it.
evidence and truth rather
It,
than
it, it, it
venting
was
emotionally and from
equitable.
trauma
Yeah,
and bad
it was
experiences. That's
equitable.
why. Mm.
That's right. It was equitable. So even when Sean she was criticizing social workers, I wasn't even offended because what she said, Sean, it was like you could listen and hear to what she was saying. Do you know what I mean? In terms of it, and people, like I said, Sally's not even anti-social service. She's not, but she was a critical friend where Sean, you could listen to that. Even when you came to Sean Hopeful Disruptors and you met Lee, do you know what I mean? Right?
Mm, yeah, of course.
He's been critical, but he's also drawn reflected. So we're not saying as I will never as a social worker say to people that you know what, don't criticize social workers. But when you come, Sean, from the critical friend approach, that's how, Sean, you're gonna get people to listen to you. Do you know what I mean? That's what's important. So yeah, man, Sean. So Sean, I'm trying, like I said, I've got a lot of things that I'm trying to really do. I really want Sean social workers to not be the enemy. Do you know what I mean? I'm really trying to, Sean. I don't want people to feel that social workers are the enemy. And like I said, I know a lot of people who will watch this will go and say, social work services let me down. And Sean, to be honest with you, I'm not even here to invalidate and say to people that they are not wrong to complain and say, well, actually, it was traumatic and all those sorts of things. I think, Sean, we need to be able to listen to that. But also, Sean, as well, I want people to really um, listen to when we talk about our processes, the legal processes, child protection, and also like, be educated on what we do. That the media, Sean, will picture social work in a certain light and not give us the opportunity to respond. Do you know what I mean? So the podcast is a way of being able to bridge that gap and have guests on and have people with lived experience to come on and speak.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That
Mm,
it's needed. It's needed. But I
yeah.
do think there's also internal pressure from like the directorship, the leadership of social services, I'd say nationally, that said if
Oh
we
yeah.
go on there, there might be confidential information slipped. It might stir up anti-social work sentiments when they, like you said, they see as case reviews, like with Baby P, Logan Morangi, Arthur
Yeah.
Labrador, use the rogue workers like Susie Smith that was she lied on that father a few years ago, and they think, see, this is what goes on. So they said, listen, you will represent us, so we don't want you going on there in case people critique things, sensitive information, or there's a leak, like in politics. And they said, look, then it just brings the whole industry into disrepute. So I know there's an angle of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sean, the main thing I'll say is this, Sean, look, is that part of doing the podcast, Sean, is also being open and honest. Is there bad practice in social work? Of course, Sean,
Yeah,
there
there
is.
is. Mm.
Do you know what I mean? That Sean goes about saying there's good social workers, Sean, there's bad social workers. We are giving guidelines, Sean, about anti-discriminatory and anti-oppressive practice. Are there practitioners, Sean, in our field who have racist views and bring it into the workplace? Of course there is. Because Sean, you've got papers on it that we speak who speak on it. You've got people with experience, like I said, Janine Davis, racism, safeguarding children. We speak about discrimination and stereotype. It's all there, Sean, within the profession. But are there, Sean, good social workers? There are. And the
Yeah, they
thing
are. They are.
is that those stories, Sean, are never told. There's the
Mm.
story, Sean, regarding good social workers. It isn't told because that, Sean, just fits the constant narrative about social workers. Like I said, I'm not here to go and say that social services is perfect. We know, Sean, it isn't. Do you know what I mean? But there are good social workers out there who do make a difference, who where families, Sean, they're thankful for the support. I've had Sean, young people that I've worked with who reached out to me on TikTok. Do you know what I mean? Who I still speak to. I've got families, Sean, that
Yeah,
I
no,
was
I've
their
seen that.
social
I've seen
worker.
that. Community
That's
news.
what, that's what I'm saying, Sean. Yeah,
Even in
yeah.
America, I saw the other day there was who is it? There was
Tiffany Haddish.
Timothy
Yeah,
Haddish, and she stopped the interview and said, "Look, you help me set me on the path.
This is
So
Sean what
you
I'm
do, but
saying.
it's usually industry specific. They don't make it go mainstream.
That's what I'm
So
saying,
they're
Sean.
saying that doesn't provoke news and outrage.
Yeah,
It's like some certain podcasts. It's like rage baiting. So and
that's
that's
what I'm
what
saying,
legacy
Sean.
media does because it kind of keeps you in the echo chamber. Like
Yeah,
everywhere is like this, and if
yeah.
there are a few that are good, it's such a tiny minority. It's not worth mentioning. And that
This is what I'm
I've
saying,
noticed
Sean.
it
Yeah,
seems to be like that across all kind of public services and government
this is
departments.
what I'm trying to
That's
say,
why I
Sean.
think
Yeah,
podcasts are needed for each
yeah,
sector that's controversial that actually impacts people's lives.
yeah. That's what I'm saying, Sean. Yeah.
Do you remember what Graham House said as well at the Disruptors Network? He said you've got to be branding yourselves as social leaders. Yeah,
Yeah,
I had him on in November, so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's very serious about that. Said you got to rebrand the whole position. Because said obviously without social workers, adult and children, adolescents,
Children.
they said people will always then see you as oh you're just doing the bare basics in terms of work. But they said
I
the
know.
impact that your sector has, the industry has, it has massive influence on people growing up,
Of
whether they
course.
turn
Yeah,
into like a well-rounded member, useful member of society, or
yeah,
someone that falls by the wayside and become
yeah.
delinquent or criminal.
No,
So
it's
that's why I said,
important.
yeah, you got to reframe that and said when you do that, he said, I believe that social service will get a lot more credit
Yeah,
and they will get more
yeah.
funding for the issues that you're having with the long
Yeah,
hours.
and
Okay,
yeah,
so
and ultimately, Sean, as well for me, it's about for me, it's about bridging the gap. I mean, like that's why I say, Sean, I've been to community events with you. I've gone to community events, with you, like even like with Princess as well, because sometimes I say to social workers that we need to immerse ourselves into the communities and people need to see us. So I go to events, say, I'm a social worker. And Sean, to be honest with you, when I say I'm a social worker, Sean, I don't feel like, oh, everybody's watching me, this and this and this. I, Sean, feel fine. I integrate myself into the community. I hear what people say, what their issues are, the negative. I don't, Sean, take it personally at all. I take it, Sean, as a learning tool. Okay, right. This is what everyone on a community level is saying. Everyone's got their own specific case, so I can't go into the full intricacies. I can only say my knowledge as to how things should run, but I use it, Sean, as a tool so that I can say, you know what, actually, you are listening, and I'm trying to, Sean, also where I can encourage, Sean, those in politics, those senior leaders, to actually come down and speak to people with lived experience. You know what I mean? Speak to them because it will show Sean that actually you're listening. It's very, very important. That's how Sean you bridge the gap and you open a positive working relationship.
definitely, of course, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. But going forward, there has to be some form of reform and better regulation oversight from people on the ground where they're allowed to come in and have, because consultations, as I always say, you can ask people their opinion. It doesn't
Mm,
necessarily mean they have to action it. So I
mm.
think there needs to be some form of executive powers. And with executive powers, there needs to be people of lived experience.
One of the things, Sean, I was saying is that I know within the Department for Education, I know that they do have people who they work with who have lived experience. And like I said, the event that we held, Hopeful Disruptors, obviously, the likes of Lee, Azaria, yourself, we're working with, their parent consultants to the local authority. So I do think that that is a way that we do need to have a lot more people with lived experience to be around the table. It's like when I worked, Sean, as a manager for the Leaving Care service, we had a corporate parenting board that basically care leavers will consult with senior management and senior leaders about the leaving care offer and all those sorts of things. So it's very, very important that when we can, you have people with lived experience round the table to help you in terms of shaping your system, shaping your policy, and also hearing in terms of what support is needed for children, young people, and families. So, yeah, Sean, I mean, like I said, this reform, I mean, the money that's being pumped into early intervention, Sean, is crucial. It will the hope. My hope is that it reduces the amount of young people and children coming into care. Keep them within the family network. Keep them within the home. So I'm hope, but we won't, Sean, see we won't, Sean, see its full potential for me until the next 2 to 3 years. Because remember, Sean, all local authorities have to
Yeah, of course. There's a
restructure.
process. There's a process
Yeah,
always.
yeah, it's going to take Sean take very, very long.
There's
Do you know
so
what I
many
mean?
moving parts. It's not going to happen overnight. But as long as there's some kind of showcasing of improvements and better outcomes overall, then you at least you've got a credible
Mm,
argument saying, look, you've criticized us, we've gone away, we've looked at policies, we've taken on board what
yeah,
you had to say. This is what we've implemented, and these are the results through the
that's it.
data.
Yeah,
And once you
that's
can
it.
do
Yeah,
that, that's all you can ask for because the perfect world does not exist.
yeah,
But
that's
we
all,
still
Sean, you can
strive
ask
for it
for.
anyway. Mm.
Yeah, that's all, Sean, you can ask for. So yeah, Sean, I'm hoping that things change, but I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing, continue going to like community events, speaking, meeting with people, networking with people, and then the hope is that, Sean, I can be impactful. Because, Sean, it's not just about me; it's about children, young people I'm working with, but also the up and coming social work workers as well, and students who are coming in. They need to come into a system whereby actually it's going to support them to be the best practitioners they can be.
Yeah, of course, definitely, definitely. Because
Mm,
obviously,
mm,
all
mm.
the public service institution change usually takes at least a generation.
Yeah,
Because people with the old kind of philosophy they brought up in a different era, they were like, well, I don't think much of these changes are any good. It doesn't benefit anything. And
that's
there's not
right.
enough reverence towards us. So why
Mm,
should we make any changes, especially when they don't work in the sector? So
that's right.
you get that everywhere. I've seen that in football, I've seen that in tennis, I've seen that
Yeah,
in youth
everywhere.
work. I've seen that when I used to work at the DWP. I've seen that in the Royal Mail. When I first went in as a teenager, you had a lot of services in there, like Army, Navy, Marines, coming in there, and they were very, yes, sir, free bag full, sir. Never question authority, sir. We will go
Yeah.
forward, sir. You had all that, and it took years. The way forward,
Mm,
30 years of the way forward, changing policies, how things worked in terms of even
mm,
pay and annual leave, and then it got privatized. These things always happen. Fun enough
yeah, yeah, yeah.
with that privatization within social services, would you say that has been beneficial, like say with the collaborative partnerships or subcontracting parts that are not doing well and the community say they believe they can do better?
It's difficult, Sean, because when you privatize it and it's removed from the local authority, in a way, it's like the services get out, not the services get outsourced, but if you privatize it and it's taken away from the local authority, where does it leave the children, young people, and families? Sometimes, Sean, in some circumstances, you have to go private to get some of the resources. But I think if that was a national thing, I don't know, Sean, if it would work because you already know, Sean, at the moment, loads of people talk about how there's loads of people with semi-independent provisions and private providers who are making stupid amount of money out of the local authority
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that. Hmm.
who are in care. Sean, I've been, Sean, to high cost panels where some providers, Sean, are charging like 10K a week, and it's like the directors are
They're
like, it's
draining. I
absolutely
know they're draining the
criminal.
public purse
You're
for
draining the public
profit.
funds. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So, Sean, that's even a big problem because there have been some providers, Sean, as a social worker that I've worked with, and they're not doing anything for these young people. They're just taking the money every single week. If you ask them to provide a report in terms of, okay, right, what are you doing for the young person? Any key work sessions and all those sorts of things, not doing anything. So I think, Sean, there's an issue with that. Because, Sean, before, if you remember in the old days, children's homes used to be regulated by the local
That's
authority.
right. That's right. So the
I
basic
think, Sean,
standards.
yeah, I think, Sean, they need to bring that back. I think, Sean, there needs to be children's homes that are part of the local authority and are regulated by the local. So it's they
Yeah,
look,
I
the
agree.
LA has control over it. 'Cause I'm not saying, Sean, you don't have providers who are not good. Like, don't get me wrong, there are providers, Sean, who do very, very well for young people. But like I said, Sean, it depends on who you get. And sometimes you look at the
Exactly.
costing,
It's
it's
like
like,
Russian roulette. Like, and you
yeah,
can't have that. Not with people's lives. I don't think public services should ever be run for profit. Never.
no.
That's why we pay taxes as a service to the people. They get
Yeah,
subsidized and then they're drawing taxpayer money as well. That's why a lot of that public-private partnership, especially initiated by Gordon Brown when I was young, in the noughties, 2005, 2006, I said, I don't see how this can go, how that can be
yeah,
any good. But no, 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 it's this old hat. We need to do that. Modernization, trimming the fat. There'd be more
mm,
efficiency savings and things like that. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe for government, but then someone is making some form of money, and that's to be fair, that's another thing where there's a a subcommittee in Wales that Sally introduced me to. They're vicious about that. And there was a another committee, social work heroes, a few years ago. To be fair, one of them being co-opted now. They don't touch that subject with a barge pole. At one point, they were telling me, "No, Sean, there's loads of money being made by organizations and individuals with political affiliations, and the service has actually gone backwards. So what's the point if it's only about money of over people's pain?" So that's the next thing with the scandal that led to a lot of people say, "Sean, yeah, something's got to be done. Not just
Yeah,
consulting. We need actually veto powers to stop some of these things." I said politicians will never allow that, and local
yeah,
authorities
because
are suspicious of normal people having them kind of influence over what
yeah,
they feel that they experience and know what to do.
yeah, because ultimately, Sean, what like I always say to anybody who comes into this job role, right, that it shouldn't your motivation, Sean, shouldn't just be about money. It should be about wanting to make a difference and you want to make a positive outcome. So sometimes, Sean, when people say, "Oh, I'm gonna start my own semi-independent, I'm gonna do this and do that," but it's like, but what's your intention and what's your motivation for doing it? Is it that you want to do it because you want to just get money, or do you actually want to do it because you want to make actual changes for these young people who are being accommodated? Because remember, they've been removed from their families, and now
Mm,
we're the corporate parent. They've gone into now a children's home and care home, and I know, Sean, there's many children, young people who've had negative experiences. You know what I mean? Because of some of the work, not all, but some of the key workers is what they've experienced. Do you know what I mean? So it's
mm,
really, really important that when you come into this field, health and social care, it's about your what's and your whys. And if it's money motivated, you shouldn't be in the field. Even sure that social worker that I posted, who last year was working with a drug dealer involving in county lines. Do you know what I mean? Like a social worker was doing that. You're a social
I
worker and you're
remember that.
working with a drug dealer, yeah. And I posted and I said I went and said that it got a little trunk, but I went and said that's not on in our profession because imagine you're a social worker meant to safeguard children, yet Sean, you're the very risk that we talk about. You shouldn't,
Mm.
Sean, be in our profession. Do you know what I mean? So for me, if you're coming into this job role to misuse your power and you're coming in just to go and make money, you don't want to make a difference, don't come into this field. For me, Sean, me being a social worker and you see it, outside of work, I do a lot in terms of social work. So I don't just go and just talk and come in. I go to places like Parliament. I go to community events. I go to universities. I meet young people because
Yeah,
it's
you're
not
well
just about
rounded. You're well rounded.
yeah,
A
it's
lot,
not just
but
about showing
remember,
okay,
not
right, I'm getting the
everyone's like
money.
you, Nana. Not everyone's
Yeah,
like you. Mm.
yeah, but Sean, there's the thing, Sean, and you know what's so interesting? When I went to an event the other day, someone said to me, "Nana, you need to speak. You can only not everyone's like you. You can only speak for your practice. So I can only,
Mm.
Sean, speak for me. Not to say there's not good social workers. There are brilliant social
Yeah,
workers
they
out
are.
there. But
Mm.
I got to speak for me. So for me, Sean, doing all these things, going to Parliament, being part of the Social Workers Union, doing all these things, Sean, is because I'm passionate about change. Going to community events. When Princess artist Nana, can you come and speak here or speak there? If I got the time, Sean, you know me, I will go and talk because to me it's important for me to go down there and speak and meet with people and try and make changes where I can. So it's not just about me, I'm coming in and that's it. Even Sean, our young people, any team, Sean, that I've managed, if a social worker's off sick, Sean, you see me, I go and I meet our young people, I go and do visits because I'm passionate, Sean, about the work that I do because I really want it to change. Because at the end of the day, I know that a job role being a social worker is people's lives. So
Mm.
if you're gonna be in this job role, one is about this job role's credibility, but two, it's about Sean it's about your own integrity as well. So
Mm. And
if you're
that
gonna
comes from within, though. That comes from within.
it comes from within.
Otherwise,
So
you get bad actors.
yeah, so if you're gonna come into this job role and you just want to just same thing, Sean, with social workers in terms of agency. I always say, Sean, to social workers, right? Because some social workers are like who just started and just say, I want to go agency, make my money. No, like you come in, you go permanent, you build yourself up, you get your experience. I did that, Sean. I didn't just go agency. I came in, Sean. I was permanent, Sean, for over 9, 10 years. Built Sean myself up, went through the training because Sean, I wanted to learn about this job role, as well as how I practice. Learn about being a good social worker. Learn, Sean, how you speak to people. Because the social work, Sean, really and truly, Sean, as well as dealing with the referrals and everything, Sean, social work, Sean, is you're working with people. So you need to, Sean, have
You
the
have to have
good
people
people.
skills, of course.
You
It's
need
a
to, Sean, have the good people
communicator,
skills. Yeah,
charisma, empathetic. If they have
yeah,
them basic soft skills,
yeah.
all the knowledge can be learned. Policy can be learned.
Oh,
Read.
it can all, Sean, be learned. So, Sean, you need to have the basic skills. Is that, Sean, when I've worked, Sean, with a family, as a social worker, Sean, I understand the fact that, Sean, people don't want me on their doorstep. So if as a social worker you can understand that is the first step. You have to understand that the job that you do, people don't want you on your doorstep. So because of that, how you approach that family, as I said in the podcast, which is so silent and clever, is very, 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 very important. Basic things, Sean, like before, Sean, I used to have my lanyard. Sean, on home visits, early on, I took off my lanyard and I put it in my pocket. Why? Because I know, Sean, going to a family's home, that's their sanctuary. And I know, Sean, that going to a family's home, wear my lanyard, Sean, it can be quite intimidating, because you've got your lanyard, you're a local authority social worker.
Representative, yeah, of course. They
Yeah.
see you like the
So
police.
yeah, so the way, Sean, in which I did it is that, Sean, I stopped wearing my lanyard. And then if I said to family, oh, I'm a social worker, here's my ID, put it in, you're going, Sean, into a family's home because I know I know you've got the perceptions, are you gonna come take my child away? So I need to, Sean, do what I can to make you comfortable. Explain to families the process, explain, Sean, the referral, explain what is an assessment, how long does it take, what checks will you be doing? Do you know what I mean? So, Sean, all those things, Sean, in social work is very, 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 um, it's important. If families, Sean, are upset and angry, I mean, you got to do, Sean, a temperature check. There were some families, Sean, before whereby I worked with them for a very long time. They'd be angry, not at me, but they'd just be angry. But because Sean had a good relationship with them, I could go and speak to them on the phone. I would do, Sean, late home visits. It is very, very, Sean, important. And for those who are watching, like I said, the job role, Sean, is not, it's not easy. It's
No, it's
very
not. It's
much,
not. That's why I
it's a,
told you I would never partake in such a position unless it
it's
was
a
like
thank it's a
training.
thank it's a thankless job, Sean. I mean, sometimes, Sean, as a social worker, you can feel a number of things. You can feel, Sean, that actually the way the system is, you want to do so much, but you can't because as Rob would say, there's too much red tape. And then sometimes, Sean, like, you know, you as a social worker, you get criticized left, right, and center. And Sean, it can be hard. It can be hard as a social worker to take a lot of the. I'm not me for me, but you've got to also be very, very, very thick skinned. Even Sean online, I get criticized, Sean, all the time online. Do you know what I mean?
You
Not
shared it with
not
me before.
massively.
I've seen it. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah,
You don't really get criticized on Instagram. From what you've told me, it's more TikTok, isn't it?
yeah. It's mainly on TikTok, but that's fine though. It's fine, but you've got to, Sean, be really, really thick skinned. And one of the things, Sean, I don't do is that I don't, Sean, go back and forth because there's no benefit from it. What I try and do, Sean, is try and have healthy discourse. And most of the time, Sean, people, if I would I say people are angry at me, I wouldn't say people are angry at
No,
me.
it's more
I'd
the system
say
you represent.
that's right, yeah. So obviously, if you're a social worker and you're saying this, they're gonna say to you, "Oh, well, you're lying because of this." And it's like, okay, it's the nature, Sean, of the beast. So it's about, Sean, how you navigate. So even if somebody, Sean, has a negative experience of a social services, and I say I'm a social worker, even, Sean, if they go and say, "Well, your system done this, your system done that," I'm not sure I'm going to take it personally because you're not talking directly to me. And I think as social workers, it's important that you separate you as the individual social worker and the system. You work for the system and then there's you. And sometimes, yes, the system can limit you. And actually, not sometimes, will create things to limit you. It happens all the time. But how you practice is important. How you choose to fight the system, how you choose, Sean, to represent yourself. The arena, Sean, that I'm in is how I represent, get awareness, about working conditions, lack of resources, racial inequality, all these things, Sean, it's all there. So, you need a lot, Sean, to do this job role. Do you know what I mean? And for Sean, people who leave, social work, I don't blame them. I don't blame them if they choose to leave. If you want to leave, you choose to leave. You know what I mean? But if you're staying, just keep persevering.
You see Dr. Alice Lovin for the Hopeful Disruptors.
Mm.
Her reflective practice where she helps parents improve by playing back, the kind of videos that she had of them when said, look, this is how you was before, and with the guidance that I'm giving you, and this is how you're operating now, and they could actually see their own improvement in their parenting skills. I think more programs need to be rolled
I
out across the
wish,
nation like that. And I'm
I
surprised there's
wish,
like a
Sean,
barrier for getting
it,
collaborative partnerships or contracts to do that, especially when there's serious cases or in the
this is the issue,
possible
Sean, for
intervention of
me.
removal. Mm.
This is the issue, Sean, for me. Dr. Alice Lovin is an amazing practitioner. And I wish more of Dr. Alice Lovin's program was rolled out across all local authorities.
Hmm. I think there should be.
And
That's a
other
necessity, I
practitioners
think.
and she and other practitioners like her were referred or were partnered. Because one of the things, Sean, I will say as a social worker, what I will say is that there are times, Sean, whereby when I've worked with parents, one of the things, Sean, that you want parents to do as a social worker is to look outside of themselves and see what is happening with their parenting.
Yeah,
And
reflective practice. That's what you call it, isn't it?
yeah,
Mm.
and obviously, Sean, as a social worker, like for me, I can do that through my relationship with them, but you need somebody else who's not a social worker to also do that because, Sean, like I said, with the caseloads and everything, as social workers, Sean, sometimes you just don't have the time with your caseload. You don't, even though you want to have the time. If cases were lower, you could have Sean more time with the family.
Yeah, the qualitative improvements
Yeah,
would happen, definitely.
that's
It
it.
would be,
That's
but
it.
it's like you said, because of the lack of boots on the ground,
Yeah,
certain deadlines,
you
statutory framework.
exactly,
So, and then
exactly.
obviously natural wastage of people exiting the possession because the emotional load and the time spent away from
And
their
they're
personal
tired.
lives. Yeah.
And they're tired, yeah. So Dr. Alice Lovin, Alice's work and what we watched, that Sean is so important because it allows parents to see themselves. Because sometimes, I think with social workers, when we say to a parent, "Oh, you lack insight or not being," I think because you're a social worker, sometimes parents are not going to take it, won't take it. Do you know what I'm saying? But I think with parenting, Sean, programs like Alice's program, parents can look outside of themselves and be like, right, I actually see what they're talking about now. Do you know what I mean? There's some cases, Sean, whereby like for me, the only way, Sean, I've been able to do that is if Sean, like, when I've gone on a home visit and I've sat down with a parent and I've had the time, Sean, with them to say, this is the case history, these are the referrals, what do you think? I've been, Sean, been able to do that work, but I also know, Sean, that I'm constrained because of things like caseloads and all sorts of things. So you need, Sean, those kind of parenting practitioners like Dr. Alice Lovin, her lens, the fact that, Sean, she records, because Sean, honestly, what you just said, and I'm saying it right now, and I really hope Alice is tagged in this. If Alice's work, Sean, was rolled out, I
Hmm.
guarantee you, Sean, the amount of cases that are going to court
Would
would halve.
reduce,
In
yeah.
half, yeah, because when you're, Sean, doing your assessment, Sean, is what your is the parents, they're watching themselves. So as well as us doing the assessment, the parents also are assessing and being like, you know what? Oh, I've watched this. I could have done this.
Mm.
It's reflective practice, Sean, in real time.
Yeah, and
For the
it's you're
parent.
supporting them instead of hitting them with a stick
Yeah,
and
yeah,
with threats. So they
yeah.
see you as a trusted partner rather than an adversary.
That's it.
And
And
that's
then
the whole
maybe, Sean,
idea.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then maybe, Sean, if a social worker had time, say for example, we met with Alice and said, Alice, you know what? I want to go and review this session with you. And then you meet with Alice, and then you as a social worker would look through this with Alice. And then you would have a discussion with Alice and then be like, you know what? This is what our observation is. Say, like, Sean, for example, you were going to court as a social worker, right? And the parents going through Alice's is program. And then, Sean, like your care plan is that the child can go back to mum. And then you can refer to that and say, well, actually, in your court statement, we referred the parent to Dr. Alice Lovin's program. And then this is what we assessed and what we saw over X amount of weeks. These are the discussions. Do you see what I'm saying, Sean? Because it will
Mm,
allow parents to look outside of themselves, and also it's about, Sean, their own accountability. Do you know what I mean?
mm.
So this is where, Sean, I think for me that reform and change is not just about, okay, right, we're gonna pump all this money in, which is important. They're gonna pump all this money in and you want to make changes. Fine. Right. You want to do early intervention. But also, Sean, and this is the bit that I'm hoping to have a discussion on. The reform, Sean, is at the beginning. What about, Sean, the other side, when Sean is on child protection or is going to court?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's
Definitely. No, definitely
easy.
reform wholesale. You know my thing with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So the reform, Sean, should be about the money and the resort intervention, but also, Sean, the resources are the people like Dr. Alice, and obviously we're doing the same thing. They should also be commissioned. They should, Sean, be given their own budget to be like, all right, cool. We're gonna give. I'm just saying, Alice, you're gonna watch this anyway. But let's just say, for example, Sean, you'd be like, you know what? I
Mm.
want to give Dr. Alice Lovin £1 million budget, yeah,
Yes.
and this is going to be rolled out. I'm just talking figuratively, but do you know what I mean, Sean? Like, this is what I'm trying to say. It's things like that because that, Sean, will also help. Do you know what? Do you know what I mean?
That's why
Like,
I'm so keen while you was in the local authority, because all them months I didn't realize you was my local authority.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I could have gone through you and said, look, refer this program because this person is doing
It,
this work on the ground in the community.
it's important, Sean. Or even, Sean, do you know one thing, Sean, we haven't got? And which I don't know why we haven't got it. Or and if anyone in the comments tell me if I'm wrong. But Sean, there should be community liaison social community liaison officers or social workers, There should be. They used to have them, Sean, in
I
the old
agree. I
days.
agree. It should be.
Yeah,
It should be. Of
there
course.
should be, Sean. Because imagine, Sean, like you work for the local authority, right? And say, for example, you're struggling to work with a family, but you've got a community liaison social worker, Sean, who lives in the ends, knows the family, and they can help bridge the gap. Do you know what I
Yeah, that's
mean?
like you said, bridging the gap.
Bridging the gap. That's what I'm trying. This is, Sean, what I'm saying. This is why, Sean, with social work. The problem, Sean, that I have with social work is that it's too outdated, Sean. It's not catching up. Like my street social work practice model, Sean, what I've developed and what I'm speaking about, which I'm trying to roll out to local authorities, is that I'm saying, listen, sometimes even all this corporate language, Sean,
It's
it doesn't
jargon. A lot of parents, they
jargon.
would just
Like
think, oh, you're trying to intimidate me with your education.
it doesn't work. So the street social work practice model, embed it within our practice because sometimes, Sean, all these models, Sean, that we use, signs of safety, all this and all that. Yeah, Sean, it looks good for us on paper because it gives us the
For
structure.
reporting,
But
reporting to your seniors, yeah,
reporting,
they
yeah,
want to see that. That is the
but
culture, and that's what they expect.
but for the family, Sean, that we're working with,
Yeah, the
does it
practicality of
work?
it on the ground is not good.
This
It's
is,
never
Sean,
good.
what I'm trying to say. So for me, Sean, like even like these family hubs, there should be, Sean, community liaison social workers, right? That you're based in the community, you're based in like a youth hub or something, and you get paid just like a local authority social worker. And
Mm,
your job role, Sean, is to go in,
I
liaise
agree.
with the community. Do you know what I mean? Just like community safety officers, but there should be community liaison social workers who can go in, meet with the families. Do you know what I mean? That you don't work for the local authority, but we're qualified social workers in the community for you. So we can tell you ABC 1, 2, 3. This I'm just thinking, Sean. This is what I'm thinking. This is why, Sean,
Funny enough, you see that all the time you was in the local authority, your last one. Was you ever part of a goal group, like an independent advisory group, with like
I wasn't,
pastors, church leaders?
no,
You weren't. That's a bit odd,
no.
especially that you're a manager with your experience.
I wasn't I wasn't I wasn't I wasn't part of those things because I was leaving care, but I wasn't part of any of those groups. Do you know what I mean?
To
But
be
it's
fair, I've
something,
just been
so
invited to one. I went to my
have
first
you?
one last week. Yeah,
But you know,
that's why I was disappointed I never got to see you before you left because
yeah,
in that you had people from all over the local authority. You had a local priest leading the advisory group, and we had two police officers. One was them was a superintendent, which I was a bit apprehensive about. But the organization that funded me for my domestic abuse pilot that I'm running from next month.
yeah. But
They
even,
they
Sean,
asked
with
me
that,
they asked
yeah,
me to represent them. So I said, "You sure?" I said, with the police and that, and obviously those types. I said, "Would it be beneficial?" They said, "Oh, just go in there, be a critical friend, and see what's happening, and you might be able to advise on because they're open to." engagement and open to information exchange, so you can improve
Yeah,
how they deal with
it's
members of the
important, Sean.
community, especially the global majority, as you say. I
Yeah,
said,
Sean,
so it doesn't.
it's
It's not a
important.
case of you us against them, which I said, you sure
Yeah,
that
yeah,
can
yeah,
work?
yeah, yeah.
So
Because
I said I was
ultimately,
a bit
Sean,
skeptical. I'm not sure if I would do anymore, but I filled in because someone
but
that
to be
didn't
honest with you,
turn up.
Sean, bro,
Mm.
it is needed because even like one of the social worker that you met, Curtis, he goes into churches, talks about safeguarding. He was part of Andrew Fuller. They did their county line stuff. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So those things, Sean, are important because ultimately you need professional, and that's probably something I need to be doing. That you need professionals to go into more community events and speak because ultimately what you want is that you want the community to meet with you, right? They will be critical friends of you as well. But it shows the community as well that actually, you know what? There are social workers who want to make a difference and make a change. That's why I go to community stuff. I was at the one all for one, one for all event last week. Do you know what I mean? This is the second time that I've been there. We're doing it every single year because you're getting parents and people with lived experience to come. They're meeting social workers and teachers and they're meeting mentors. They're meeting us because we're integrating. So you break down, Sean, those barriers. So Sean, it's
It's
really
good. Well,
important, bro.
I'd like you to come back to my particular local authority because obviously
No, I
you've
will, Sean.
planted
I will.
already.
Once I settle, I will come because I do want to come and also want to speak as well because it's important for me to also listen. Do you know what I mean? And also, Sean, I'm trying to bring, I want more social workers, Sean, to actually come to these community events and just hear. It's not. I think, Sean, some social workers are a bit fearful, and it's like you don't
Yeah, they
actually
are. They
need to
are. I
be.
can understand though. I can understand
Yeah,
why.
yeah, but Sean, for me, but Sean, for me, I'm not scared to go into the community because
Yeah,
what's
you're
the worst?
courageous though. You got
Yeah,
courageous. You got integrity, and the
yeah,
way you practice, you'll get most people on side.
that's
That's
what
why I
I'm
don't
saying.
understand why the local authorities don't have like their version of you doing a lot of the public relations
Well,
community
Sean,
work because they said then you'd have a better reputation
this
and
is it.
people will not won't see local authorities as their enemy, but as their
Yeah,
partners or as a support network. That's the
yeah,
thing. It's too much of us against them, and then admitting error when there's been policy failures, just like because parents have nowhere to turn to if they've failed in their parenting. They're just there's intervention
yeah,
that's removed because they have the corporate entity, they have the legislative power, the executive power to remove where we don't. So there's a power dynamic shift. So I
yeah.
said if you
Do
do
you
that,
know, Sean, how
people
much
will have
messages,
more of a
Sean?
say.
Do you know, Sean, how much messages that I get on TikTok from parents and on Instagram and TikTok who are say, "Oh, Nana, can you read through this assessment?" Obviously, Sean, I say to them, I can't because data protection and also it's
Yeah,
your
conflict of
case, isn't
interest
it?
as well.
But sometimes they're like, "Oh, like I had one mum, Sean, who was in care proceedings, right? And she said to me that, look, I think the workers, she was doing a course and a parenting course, and they said she's doing really, really well. And they said, oh, she messaged and said, oh, Nana, what do you think I could I could add to my statement? And Sean, I showed her a reflective model, and I said, listen, this reflective model, use it within your court. Talk to the court in terms of what you understand. It was a reflective cycle, and she used it. And I think Sean, she messaged and said, oh. Now, thank you very much. I actually got my child back under a supervision order. So it's not the fact that Sean, I won't speak to her parents and say, oh, this is my view, of how you can address things. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
So,
remember those decisions are usually left to a magistrate, isn't it, or a district judge, which that kind of takes it the well not the blame, but takes the decision out of the actual local authority's hands, isn't it? You submit
yeah, I mean,
reports, section
yeah, I
seven
mean,
reports, section
ultimately, Sean, it's
47.
down to the courts. Yeah, ultimately, Sean,
Exactly. So that's the next thing, as you know, for another episode, the family courts have to be.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think judicial immunity has to be reduced, and
I know,
you
Sean,
must
a
have
lot
more
of
say
people
over
have spoken
decisions.
about it. A lot of people
Mm.
have spoken about, and Sean, because of you, Sean, sometimes Sean judges get it wrong. Let's be
They
honest,
do,
Sean,
they do, they do,
judges
they
get it
do,
wrong.
and
They,
there's
they,
not
they,
enough. There's not enough flack directed towards them.
yeah.
There's not because of
Sometimes,
the immunity and the fact
yeah,
that they
sometimes Sean,
can
they get it wrong.
esoteric in the
Yeah.
courthouse.
Yeah, sometimes as a local authority, sometimes a judge is like, you go to court and the judge makes a decision and then something happens. You're like, yeah, but it's on the judge's head. It is on the judge's head. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, Sean, there's a lot to change. But Sean, I'm trying with with the platform that I've got, with what I'm doing, Sean, I'm really, really trying bit by bit to try and make the changes where I can, and
Oh yes, and father engagement. See, so
yeah,
you
yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
mother getting back. Maybe when the mother's struggling and not up to it, it should be
Well,
transferred
well,
to
well,
willing
well,
dads that are
sure.
willing to take their children. Mm.
Well, Sean, that's another thing as well because I know even in terms of that, that's very, very controversial. So even with that, I mean, Robert will tell you because Robert works with a lot of fathers as well, and I know there's lots of fathers who've had issues with the local authority as well. So Robert's done a lot of work with fathers as well. But yeah, I'm really, really, Sean, trying to change social work where I can, So yeah, man, it's been good to come on, Sean. It's been good to come on and have this discussion with you because yeah, I'm just hoping the reforms. We'll see what happens. I mean, they start April. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we definitely will see what happens. But
Yeah,
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 that
yeah.
has to for me. There has to be the father engagement has to increase because
Mm,
they had all the public relations around that 3 4 years ago. But in terms of
mm,
delivery and application, there's not been much change at all. That will
mm,
also reduce a lot of the, like, say, infant side, the child deaths, child abuse, if there's more transfer instead of going into forced adoption and care homes that willing
mm,
dads are giving their children. But
mm,
I know a lot of it is cultural because they're thinking, oh, who's going to do the work then? If the dads are like the primary carer, we could lose tax receipts because they're not working as much or they're working part time. And
mm.
that's why, have you seen the new annual leave thing where parental leave for dads?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
that's a soft power that we've been trying to work in for the last 7 8 years, and they reckon eventually within 20 to 30 years, because that will be accepted by most
Yeah,
corporations and public services institutions, that
yeah, yeah.
they'll have more primary care in the early years of children, so build better bonds. So
Of
they're more
course, it's
likely to
important.
take the children. Some dads will say, "Oh, I really don't want them because I got to work and I'm not ready
Yeah.
to manage." That would change the whole mindset around the dual parenting,
Mm.
the shared parenting,
Well,
especially
yeah,
with
yeah,
amongst
yeah.
non-resident households or families that have had relationship breakdown or blended families. They said
Yeah,
there
yeah,
will be more
yeah.
responsibility in terms of the care, primary care by the
Mm,
dads. At the moment, you have willing dads, but most still say, "Oh, we're the breadwinner. We'll go out to work and then
no,
we'll
it's
leave them
important, Sean.
there."
It is.
So
It
that's
is.
needed because that will also improve outcomes for children and adolescents and young people,
Mm,
and that
yeah,
needs
yeah,
to be a
yeah.
thing going forward. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
Mm.
Yeah. But Sean, it's been good, man. It's been really, really good, man. It's been good.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
And
been
thanks for
good, man.
coming on today. And
Huh?
hopefully we'll catch up soon. I'll actually get to see
Yeah,
you. Imagine all
definitely,
that time
yeah.
you worked. I saw you on your own podcast and you was working it in my local area and I couldn't see you for all that.
Yeah, I
Gee,
know,
that's
man. I know,
terrible.
I know,
That's
I know.
terrible.
I know,
We're
I
supposed
know.
to be we're supposed to be solidarity, allies.
No, no, we need to link up, Sean. We do, man. We do.
Yeah.
This is the journey and stuff, but we need to link up. We do, man. We
All
do,
right
man.
then.
Yeah, but Sean, no, thanks for
Thanks for
having me.
coming on
And Sean,
today.
like I said, we're definitely gonna do another panel, so you're gonna be coming on anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. All right,
definitely. All
everyone.
right, thanks, Sean.
Where there's
Yeah,
people, there is power. Justice in our
yeah,
time.
definitely. But Sean, you stay in touch though. Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, cheers. Take care, Sean, man.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.